absolutely.
Cool. So I want
There's
you.
very little I'm not okay with.
Oh, the very little you're not okay with. Cool, cool. So I'm going to take you all the way back to your first period story. So I want you to paint me a picture. I want you to tell me like where you are, where you were, how old you were, who was around you, what you were wearing. Can you go back into that memory for me?
Oh yeah, yes. It was very traumatic actually.
Okay.
I was I think I might have been 12 or 13. I think I might have just turned 13, just. And I woke up in the morning very sick. So I had diarrhea, I had vomiting, I had a headache. Um, so yeah, very unwell. So my mother got me home from school, and then during the morning I went to the toilet and I saw blood.
Hmm.
So I knew what it was because my mother had prepared me that this was going to happen, but we didn't obviously expect the sickness with it.
Hmm.
Um, so that was the start. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And how was your mother before you got your period? So you said she told you. Do you feel like she was open, or she just telling you the facts, or like what was her approach with you?
She was good. Interestingly, when um, I must have been about 10, and she actually got my older sister, who's 7 years older than me, we used to have a bath together. That's in the days when you had a bath and you used to bath with your sister or whatever.
Yes.
So
Yes.
my sister and I used to bath together, and she got my sister to tell me in the bath one day, because it was girly stuff.
Yeah.
So she told me, because I was always curious why mum had these cotton wool things in a wardrobe that I never saw used for anything,
Mm-hmm.
and the sanitary pads. And so my sister told me what they were all about, and that would happen to me at some point. This would happen. So, and after that discussion, mum was always very open about it. We could talk about it, and she was always very good about it. And yeah, so I knew what was what was going to come, and when the time would be, because she would sort of say to me, you're getting, your periods must be getting closer, because she could see I had pubic hair growing, and my breasts were starting to develop, and that, so she knew it wasn't far away. Yeah.
Yeah. And so was it you, your mother, and your sister? Did you have a father as well? Do you have any other brothers or
Yeah, no,
sisters?
I had a father, or I had a father. I had a
Yeah.
father then at the time as well, but it was
Okay.
sort of very much secret women's business.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I understand. And then moving forward, so you got your period. Did you then have an open relationship with your mother then around your period as you moved into your
Yes.
teenage years?
Yes, I always did, because I always had issues with my period. So
Mm-hmm.
I never had a normal, healthy period from the
Okay.
very first one. My period cycle, so it was a series of dramas, I suppose. So
Mm.
my mother and I shared a very close relationship with my period,
Okay.
because it was navigating ways of dealing with it, and what was going on for me with it. So,
Mm.
like, my cycle was always 3 to 3.5 weeks. I think in, probably the 40 years, or 40, about 35, 40 years, and then 40 years that I had my period, um, I probably could count on one hand how many times it went 4 weeks.
Right.
I never did, hardly ever. Very rarely it was like, whoa, I actually went 4 weeks.
Mm.
It was usually 3 to 3.5 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. And so at that young age when you got it, what did your mother like help you, like guide you with, like when it was like you had the diarrhea and probably pains and then it's only showing up 3 weeks, like what did she do for you? Did you go to the doctor? Did you?
Yeah. Yeah. So we went to a doctor. We had a regular GP.
Mhm.
Um, in that era, which would have been early 70s, 1970s, they just really didn't care. They just had no answers. It was there wasn't even actually a tablet that you could take for it. like there was nothing specific apart from an aspirin or a Panadol, which didn't work at all.
Mm-hmm.
So the pain I could do nothing about at that stage. They didn't give me anything that would support that. They just said, well, that looks like that's your cycle. 3.5 weeks, that's just your cycle. Live with
Mm-hmm.
it, you know. That went on for a very long time. And then I started to get, in my early 20s, I started to have really, really traumatic experiences. Like, so apart from the pain, I would actually pass out. I
Uh,
would vomit. I
mm,
would, that sort of thing. Like I would change colors, and it was very traumatic. And the pain was becoming like contractions,
mm,
like birth contractions. And we had a newer doctor then. The other doctor retired that we had was the younger doctor, and 1979, I suppose.
yeah.
To They used to prescribe ibuprofen, which is for it. It's like a anti-inflammatory. So they would give it to sports injuries, and he said
Okay.
that they discovered that it was very effective dealing with period pain. So the thing with that was, so I took that every period, for as long as for quite a few years, but I had to get the pain at the very onset, because if I didn't, the ibuprofen wouldn't work. So
Mm,
because it would take over an hour to kick in, and once the pain kicked in, too bad, it didn't work. So the
yeah.
experience would happen. It's just, I don't know why, but that's what happened with it.
Mm, yeah.
When I was 22, the doctors wanted to give me a hysterectomy
Mm,
because of it, because of the issues I had. They said that I'd had endometriosis, and the only option was to get pregnant. That could help. But they said I probably wouldn't carry a baby, which I didn't. I'd had a miscarriage already. Um, or they'd give me a hysterectomy. So I had a very understanding boss at that time, woman, and she said, like, and a bit more, because my mother was quite older, like quite a lot older than me,
mm-hmm.
so she wasn't sort of, you know progressive thinking.
Yeah.
So the boss took me to an acupuncturist, and that helped a lot. So I didn't have to have the hysterectomy. I was able to deal with the pain with Chinese herbs and regular acupuncture.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. And how do you think the beginning of you getting your period and what happened to you shaped your attitude towards your womb, towards your menstrual cycle, to what was going on in your body? How do you think that shaped?
It was very it made me angry. I was very angry. Um, I I was very sad, um, because I wanted to have children, and I knew that it was probably not going to be great. I was confused because I couldn't understand why it was happening to me,
Mm,
um, at that stage. Um, I can't say, a part of me hated it, like hated the whole thing, and hated um, my wound. Part of me didn't. Like, there was another part of me that was sort of wanted to feel differently about it. Sort of what was
mm,
like, I don't know, something that the thing what is, I suppose it's like a parent when they ignore you. You want that parent to love you. Well, it was like my womb was like, I wanted my womb to love me, or I
mm,
wanted to love my womb, but I found it really difficult because it was really problematic. Yeah.
mm. Yeah. And what about your sister? Did she have a normal menstrual cycle?
Yeah. Yeah. So everyone in my family that I know of, so my mum, my sister, uh, grandparents, I don't know, but my grandparents had like lots of children, so they were probably fine to some degree. My sister and my mum suffered discomfort, so like maybe a little bit cramping, but never enough to sort of have to go to bed or take the day off. So my situation was very, like, it wasn't normal in the family. No,
Yeah.
no.
And did you look at your sister in a different way, like because she had a normal menstrual cycle, or like was there any like I don't know what emotion would come up, any jealousy or any like anything like that came up between you and your sister because of that?
Not really. I don't remember feeling that. I don't remember feeling anything about her cycle at all, because she was 7 years older than me. So um, I just sort of, and she didn't live with us. Actually, when I got my period, she'd already been married. Like, got married at 19.
Okay.
So I didn't she wasn't even in the house really when all this was going on, and she had children and stuff. So I sometimes was a little bit jealous that she had children when I
Mm,
when I got older and I
yeah.
couldn't. That was
Mm,
a little bit hard for me, like, just on an emotional level. Um, but otherwise, no, I don't think I was like, oh, how come you're not suffering with your periods like I do? I didn't really have that. No, I
yeah.
was just always confused that it was more confusion that other people could have normal periods and I just really didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you think your mum's attitude was towards her period?
Um, I'd say, from my experience, I never talked to her about what she thought about her period. She did tell me she only had like minor pain here and there, but I think she probably just took it as part of life.
Just
Just
natural part of life.
something happened that happens, part of the whole cycle of giving birth and getting, ovulating, and that she understood all that. So I think she just accepted it as just what happens with a woman. Yeah.
Yeah. And then did you ever know when she was on her period when you were growing up?
Um, Only because I would see her buy by the sanitary pads.
Yeah.
But at that stage, I didn't know what it was. So that's, my mother started menopause the same time that I started my period. So we never ever had a cycle together.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was never bleeding while she was bleeding. She'd finished just before I started.
Mm,
So that was, yeah, it was interesting feeling it
yeah.
too. I sort of felt, I suppose if she had been bleeding, I might not have felt so alone with that.
Mm,
You know, it was a very lonely feeling.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
Because people didn't understand, if people have a reasonably healthy period, they don't understand how much problems it can cause if it's not healthy. If there's some issue, how agonizing it is. Like, I remember my boss, not the female boss, her husband. I was at work one day and I had one of my attacks where I went white and I passed out and I was sick. And he I could hear him saying to somebody that I'd had a hangover, that I'd been drinking, I had a hangover, and that sort of thing. So people just didn't understand. Yeah, they just sort of labeled it as, maybe being a hypochondriac, being over theatrical, um, playing on it. Oh, she's going to have another day off because, another day off work because she's got a period, that sort of thing. So that makes you feel very, not recognized or not even
mm,
supported and not understood, with
mm,
that. Yeah. So it becomes a
yeah.
very lonely experience.
Mm. Yeah, I love what Alyssa Vitti says. It's like the five vital signs for a woman. Like you got the four for a man, which is four same for men and women, which is like your heartbeat. I can't remember off the top of my head, like heartbeat, like breath. I can't remember, but the fifth one for a woman is her menstrual cycle, and we don't put that in the category of
No,
the five vital signs of a healthy body. You
we
know?
don't, and it's so relevant.
Yeah.
So relevant. And like, I don't know, like, only as an old lady now, and I look back and I actually think I think to me. I was, and I think it was that. Hello.
Hello. You
Can
just
you hear?
break.
Oh, you're there.
You just broke
I
up a little
lost you
bit.
there for a minute. Yeah, can you
Sorry.
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
Yeah, same. You froze.
you.
No, that's okay. Did you get the last bit?
No, I missed that first
Yeah, but
sentence. As an old lady, you're saying.
yeah. So as an old lady, yes. So as an old lady, and I look back and I think, because I was sexually abused when I was very young. I think I told you that. I'm not sure,
Oh no.
but I think, yeah. So I was sexually abused from when I was like about 5 years of age to about 6 or 7
Oh,
by a
I'm so
neighbor.
sorry.
So I tend to think, looking back, that is the trigger.
Mm,
Because there was nothing else in my life that was, to do with anything like that. That, whether I carried some shame, or because even a child, it's wrong,
mm,
you know,
mm.
and of course, perpetrators pick people that love them a lot of times, and so it's that whole body. But this has happened to me. Yeah.
Mm. I'm so sorry that you experienced that. That is, I'm going to give you a big hug. Oh.
Give me a virtual hug. Thank you. I can feel that. I'm okay. I'm okay, but I'm okay about it all now. But well, not okay, but I do see in retrospect a bigger picture of my health situation, and that
What
definitely.
age
I
did
never
you
ever
start
put it
connecting
together.
those dots? What age were you when you saw what happening with your menstrual cycle?
Only recently.
Ah,
Only recently. Yeah, only recently. It just hit me one day, like as I've got a little bit more into sort of doing more women's work,
mm,
and I actually had a lump on my womb about 2 years ago. They discovered it. They said it'd been there for a very long time,
mm,
and so I had it taken out, and it was benign, thank goodness. But and interestingly, this is the irony of it. The surgeon was a really lovely man, and for a surgeon, and he said, "I have to tell you, you have the most perfect, beautiful womb I've ever seen." And I'm like, "How bizarre is that?
yeah.
How bizarre is that to think that I went through all of that, and it's like, because I think it's intact.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm.
it's intact. So for an older woman, yeah.
Wow, so
So,
interesting.
so
And
it sort of all opened up things for me from that.
yeah, because I was gonna ask you, but now that came up was as an older woman, as you look back and with all the knowledge that you've gained now, how could have you, with all the healing modalities that you've received, what ones would you have put back then? What do you think could have helped you heal the emotions and and it could also be this lifetime and the previous lifetimes
Well,
that
that's
you've
it. We
carried
don't
on as
know.
well.
Yeah, we don't know the full story, of the karmic play out of what happened with me. I
Mm,
mean, even the sexual abuse, we don't know the karmic play out of that. Like, it just is. Um, but there's a couple of things that happened to me as I got older that had a big, powerful effect on my menstrual cycle. One was when I was in my early 30s, because I always used to paint, oil painting.
mhm.
And for some reason, I had sort of these spiritual type experiences at that stage that were kind of channeling through. And one of the meditations that I had that came to me was, I did a journey inside my womb.
Ah,
I was like, I went up through my vagina, up into my womb, and what I experienced there, and the feeling. And I also did a little ritual where I used my menstrual blood and put it on my sacred objects on my altar. Like, I'm not smeared it, but just like a little
yeah.
token sort of thing. From that time, then I did a painting of the dream. So it's like a big inside the womb, um, you know, blood, whatever. And then there's this sort of goddess type figure in the middle. So that was a radical shift. Things
Mm.
became a lot better for me after that. I stopped sort of those attacks that I was getting,
Mhm.
and the pain was a lot less, a lot more manageable, a lot kind of more, normal. The bleeding was still every 3.5 weeks, but I didn't suffer as
Mm.
much. Then when I got to around 40, and I was looking after my mother who was dying, and that was a lot of stress. So I took up yoga, and I became, not intentionally, I just went off eating meat. So I stopped eating meat, I stopped having dairy, and from that time on, I had no period pain.
Wow.
Nothing, nothing, nothing.
Mm.
Everything was normal. I still bled every 3.5 weeks, but there was no pain, or if
Mm.
there was, very, very minimum. And that continued through until my menopause.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm.
But the last period that I ever had was very light, but it was a throwback to the very first period I ever had. So I
Ah.
had vomiting and diarrhea.
Oh.
The very last
Wow.
period,
That's like the end of the cycle.
end of the cycle. Something in my consciousness just went like, okay, this is your last one. Let's finish the way you started. I couldn't believe it. I knew it was my last period. I just knew it because I thought, this feels like when I was like young, and how I got my first one.
Wow, that's incredible. And how old were you then? What was that age?
52. 52.
52.
Yeah, I had my last one at 52. I don't remember the month or anything, but I was 52.
Okay. Wow, that's so interesting.
It is. Yeah, it is. So these imprints, these imprints
Yeah.
that we have, and how they play out,
Yeah.
and how powerful the mind is with it, and
Mm.
like overcoming sort of issues, and how much the mental state plays out also with it. Mm.
Yeah, very interesting. And if we go back to your mum, did you ever see her do like nice things for herself? Like, could she like look after herself, take time to rest? Like, or was she go, 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 go?
No, she wasn't go, go, go.
No.
Sorry, you're making me laugh, because my mother was a little bit, I mean, I love it a bit, but she was a little bit, she knew how to do nothing. Um, she she was a stay-at-home mum always, so she never worked.
Okay.
So she had a lot of time, too much time for herself. So she got very bored, very depressed. She was sick a lot. She always had health issues, always. Like and this could be to do with me as well. When I was born, we both nearly died.
Yeah.
Um, she had very high blood pressure, and they had to induce me at 7 months, and all those sorts of things. So, maybe that's something to do with my cycle as well. I've no idea. That sort
Mm,
of whole traumatic birth thing maybe planted in me somehow. That
mm.
you know, yeah, the whole
And
thing.
how do you think your mother's like resting state and then maybe then going into a depression and all of what you saw, how do you think that affected your resting or your productivity, or just, yeah, how did that imprint onto you?
I'm very different. In the sense, I'm very proactive doer. So
Okay.
I like to get things done. I'm very like, if I get an idea, I make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas my mother wasn't like that at all. She would not even get an idea. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't mean that terribly, but she couldn't, like, without being derogatory. Like, no, I don't mean
Yes.
it in a bad way, because it's that sort of era, and that's
Yes.
the way they lived. But she might get an idea of, you know, crocheting something, or putting some flowers in the garden, that type of thing. She didn't have any big ideas. She didn't have any kind of inspirational ideas.
Mm.
It was all very domestic, very simple ideas. So she didn't have a creative mind like
Yeah.
that. If she wanted to make anything, she'd follow a pattern. Yeah, I've never seen her inspired.
Mm-hmm.
like, oh wow, I've got a great idea. I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do this, or she never did that. She used to be busy with my sister with sporting things and that, involved with that. But she wasn't, as an individual, a creative type person.
Okay.
So, yeah, I live my life very differently. In fact, I think she was a good role model in the way that I didn't want to live like she does.
Yeah, you're reverse role modeled.
She was a reverse role model. I'm very much like my dad. My dad was a real doer, and he was always inspired, always making things, always doing things, that type of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's
But yeah,
interesting.
she wasn't. Yeah. Yeah.
And if we describe femininity as being open, nurturing, agreeable, going with the flow, creative, intuitive, they're just some of the words that come up for me. Do you feel that you're in touch with your femininity?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yes, I really, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel
And how's that come out through your personality?
I'm personality wise, I'm lively, but well, not as much as I used to be. I'm more passive now, but I'm not I'm not aggressive. You still there? Yeah.
Yep. You just broke up just a little bit then. Oh.
Yeah, I'm sort of a calm, um, very nurturing. I love to care for people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I love to mother. I love to mother people.
Yeah.
That's my big thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you feel that your
And
mom?
I love dressing up.
Oh, what was that? What did you say?
I said I love dressing up feminine and, just being feminine. I love all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if we look at that definition again, like open, nurturing, agreeable, cooperative, going with the flow, do you think your mother was in touch with her femininity?
No, no, I don't think so. She was always very angry, very frustrated, always depressed. Um, no, she didn't go with the flow. She's always suffered anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If anything changed, she'd have a panic attack. That type of thing. Yeah.
And do you feel there was any stage of your life where that imprinted on your femininity, do you think?
Yes. My early life. Yes, definitely.
Your early
So
life?
I had a couple of emotional breakdowns in my what was that late like around 20, and then I had another one maybe a little later. I can't quite remember, but that was like a play out of my mother,
Mm,
using my mother's template of not dealing with things. Yeah.
yeah.
I remember making a very conscious decision. I didn't want to be like her.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. It's interesting to look back and see our patterns of our parents and see what we've taken in or see where we've moved
Yes.
or shifted. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And how do you think your relationship with your father shaped your attitude towards men?
Sorry for laughing. Um, I don't feel that I've ever had a very good attitude towards men.
Mhm.
I'm being really honest. Um, my father was a really good man, but we didn't get along very often, and that was interesting too because he didn't realize that I was suffering. He had judgments about me, which were actually he didn't know that he knew that I had period problems, but because they don't talk about it in that
Yeah.
generation, he just assumed that I was selfish and didn't ever want to have children. He made all these judgments about me.
Mm.
And then he treated me according to those judgments. So he was always a bit nasty, sarcastic, to me as I got older. We had not a very good relationship until we had a huge argument one day, and we realized that we'd both read each other wrong for most of our life.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, and that we're very much alike. Yeah.
Mm.
So unfortunately, his behavior towards me imprinted in how I see a lot of men.
Mm.
Yeah, which is unfortunate.
And did that affect when you chose men as well? Who were you choosing? Were you choosing your father or the opposite of your father, or
I chose my mother.
you chose your mother?
Yes,
That's interesting.
I chose my mother. Yeah, even my father used to say, "Oh my God, you've married your mother." But he did. I didn't really believe it at the time, but now I look back, I think, yeah, you're spot on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I don't know if you're open in sharing this, but were you able to talk to your mother and father about your abuse when you're a child, and did they receive it, or did they didn't believe you?
I never ever spoke to them about it.
So you've held that with
Yes.
you. Oh, I just got goosebumps. Oh my
Yes.
God.
I've never say never knew.
Ah.
Yeah, they never knew.
And how do you think that burden you've been carrying all these years has impacted you?
I think in more ways than I first thought it did.
Mm.
When I was young, I sort of used to think about it sometimes, and I think, oh no, it's okay because it was so and so.
Mm-hmm.
It was a friend, like it was a neighbor. So it was like, oh, it's okay because it was so and so. Like I knew them, and they didn't hurt me, and so I had that in my head. I kind of brushed it aside that it wasn't that bad. But it was only when I got older, much older, and I look back and I thought, no, that was horrific. As a sort of adult looking back, it was like, and I think it carried a lot of, I probably carried a lot of shame that I didn't realize, and a lot of anger I didn't realize. Yeah. And also shaped my opinion of men. Yeah.
And do you think you've forgiven like him and yourself as well through this journey and that experience?
I don't know. I haven't forgiven him, because interestingly, he was son of a neighbor, who the neighbor was actually like my second mother. So she kind of looked after me because my mother was always sick. And when she died, so when she was alive, this guy was always really lovely to me, like really lovely to me, always, and I would never say anything because it was her son, and, I loved her, and he used to do things for me, like sort of spoil me as like a little sister, but he was abusing me. Then when my nana, the woman, died and I went to the funeral, he turned on me and sort of was really nasty. And up until that point, that's probably when I realized the effect it had on me. Because up until that point, he'd been nice, and then all of a sudden, and I didn't see him very often, as an adult. I might see him every few years or something, at her place, because he got married and moved on. I often wondered if he ever interfered with his own children because he had some daughters. So that was a concern to me. But yeah, when he turned on me at my nana's funeral, then I got angry. I was really angry, and I thought, I'm sorry now that I was so amicable about him, that I didn't tell at some point. But it doesn't matter because it's all over. I don't even know if he's still alive. I've lost complete contact with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's move that energy.
Move it out.
Move it
Move
away.
it out. It's
Move it
gone.
away. Move it away
It's
now.
gone.
Get it out.
It's shifted. It's shifted. Oh yes, that's just part of the story of life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
dinosaurs.
and look where you've come, like look what's where your journey's come, and now you're able to be an inspiring voice for other women. So
And that's what I really want. That's really where I'm at now, is like everything that I've been through, and some really, like, well, a lot of it now. Um, I really would like to support other women
mm,
that may be going through something like that, because there's so much associated with the womb, and reproductive system that affects our whole life, and vice versa. Our life affects our womb, and our womb affects our life, like any trauma we've suffered and whatever. So it's really a double-edged sword, and we don't realize the impact. Which is why I was so grateful when you did ask me if I would do it, because it's personal to me. Yeah,
yeah.
I haven't had a happy womb.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can see how why you said yes, because it's usually the women that have a strong why that say yes to something like this. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
very interesting.
yes.
And then one
I've got a
last
boss.
question is, with all this
Yeah.
work that you're doing with your femininity, what, and like with when you're in your femininity, the masculine is attracted to it. So that could, I know you've got your husband, but it also could be like worldly success, tangible success. What would you
Yes.
like to attract in your life right now?
Yes, I'd like to attract. Right now, I would really like to attract a family of amazing women who really want to elevate their life, who want to heal, who are willing to do the work to heal, and spread that out there, that we can support each other, that they're not alone, that it's not shameful. I'd like to help women overcome shame. I'd
Mhm.
like to help women overcome the desire to constantly want to please men, to validate themselves. I'd like women to be in their own power, that they don't feel they have to have, implants, Botox, hair dye, whatever,
Mm,
to be attractive.
mhm.
I'd like to empower women to be really fully in their own authenticity and be happy with that and full with that.
Yeah.
That's really so important to me.
Mm. Powerful, powerful. Wow, amazing. Let's put it out into the universe.
Exactly. I am. That's my thing, is like, yes, I just really want to show women that you don't have to grovel to a man to be valued.
Mhm.
You don't have to be a yes person to anybody in your life. You don't have to try to be something you're not because somebody's said something about the authentic you at some point. You know,
Mm. Yeah.
it's it's a big job. I think it's bigger than me, but it's bigger than me. But I'm trying. I think I've got my life's not long enough to do that. But anyway, a little dint, a little dint will help. Yeah.
And
I
what
always say, mm,
and what age were you when you met your husband? Like, were you in your authenticity then?
um, yes and no. I was 24, nearly 25.
Okay.
I was a young woman that was very natural. So I never wore makeup much. Like, actually, the only thing I ever wore was lipstick. I never did anything with my hair. So yeah, I was very natural.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was happy in my body. I didn't ever want to be anybody else's body, anybody else's face, head. No, I've
Yeah.
never ever wanted that ever.
But what women don't realize, you got to be thinking from the other perspective. That's what men are so attracted to, the natural.
True.
Yeah.
They like it. I mean, they like it. And isn't it, as I've got older, like I'm lumpy and bumpy, and men still find that attractive if you're in your own power.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
don't care. They go for the energy of the person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
True.
and the empowered person, men like women that are empowered. They might not want to live with them always, but
That's another story.
that's a whole other thing. But the attraction certainly is they're attracted to women that are empowered. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, there are the questions for me. Did you have anything to share about your experience so far? I think you've only got nearly only one week
I've got a
left
week.
of the
I've got 1
challenge.
week left. I've
Yeah.
loved it. I've loved it, and it was unfortunate in the retreat. It was just really too hard to get my head around it. Um, but yeah, I've loved it because it's amazing how much the program has coincided with how I'm actually feeling at the time. So it's very, so I must actually be in sync nowadays. I might not have been 20 years ago, but I am now because like when it took different things that Alexa's, what the reading is, the forecast for the day has been, I'd say 99% accurate
Oh, wow.
for where
Wow.
I am.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, 99. It's only been 1 or 2 days maybe where it was like, oh no, I don't feel like that today.
Yeah.
But or I would find that I'm actually already doing what the forecast says.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like today, the forecast was to take to be quiet and rest and
Ah.
all that. That's
That's
exactly
perfect for
right.
after your retreat
Yeah,
experience.
exactly. I'm like, it's exactly what I'm doing. I woke up this morning, I slept in a bit, I didn't have any classes, and I had a very slow breakfast, and yeah, so it was like, okay, yeah, spot on. Been really good.
That's good.
I'm
Very
loving it.
good.
Yeah, yeah, I'm loving it. I'll be sad when it's all over, I think.
Yeah, I know, and it goes so quick. You don't realize. Sometimes it's like, oh, 28 days, but then it's over like
It's
that.
flowing. It is. It's flowing. Yeah. It's like wow. I've only got like 6 days or something left. So
Yeah,
7 days. Yeah. It's amazing.
very
Yeah.
good.
Thank you. Thank
Very
you.
good.